Hi, I'm Amy Smollers, CEO of Strategic Market Insight, and welcome to week 4 of 7 things every person should master. And this week's topic is conversation. Now, this topic that we're going to talk about this week, conversation, flows naturally from the previous 3 weeks, which was reading, then inquiry, flexible thinking and use of evidence. All of that is a natural progression to talk about conversations. Now, I understand conversations are something we take for granted, right? Because we have them every day with all sorts of different people and different types of contexts. And the sad part is that unfortunately, I haven't seen or been a part of a lot of conversations where there is a deliberate intention that's positive to go into the conversations, nor are there a lot of folks that really practice ways to have real conversations with each other and not just a flyby. Hey, how's it going? Okay, how are the kids? Doing all right? Great to see you. Bye. Those are conversations, but those aren't the type of conversations I'd like to talk about today. So the focus is not on the quantity or number of conversations we have, but I'd like to talk about this week the quality of the conversations that we have, either with our friends, with our colleagues, with our spouse, or with our kids. So if you stop and think for a moment, when you're participating in conversation, how often do you think about who's contributing and how much? Do you dominate the conversation? Do you sit back and just sort of listen to the conversation and not really participate? Or are you checked out when the other person is talking? And my worst pet peeve is actually folks who you're having a conversation with them and their phone buzzes. And now I have a couple friends where they got the watches, so their wrist is buzzing, right? So they get a text or an email and they go and they're looking at that email while you're talking. Yeah, okay, yeah, I heard that. And they're not engaged, they're not listening to anything that's going on in the conversation because their brain is on their phone or on their watch or somewhere else. So while it's hard at times to really focus on a conversation, and I know it can be draining mentally, because if you're really there and you're really focused and you're in it, it can be draining. But it can also be very fulfilling and give you some energy back. So I have 4 things that I would like to share with you today that I think really lead to positive and really great conversations. And I'd also, going over these 4 things, like to pose a challenge to you today. So take time, and I'd like you for one day to attempt to look at each of these 4 areas and assess how well you do in each of the 4 areas. And there's a couple ways to do that. There's one, you can reflect on conversations that you've had, or you could think about conversations you have coming up. And I say that because I actually spent this week focusing on these 4 areas for conversation. And I've been journaling this week of, well, how am I doing in terms of area 1 or in area 3? And who was the conversation with? And how do I think I could do better next time? Right? So it's always an ever-learning process. And in terms of getting ready for a conversation, I can give you 2 examples, right? So I'm getting ready. So I know there's 2 things that I have going on tomorrow. One of them is a birthday party for a family member. And specifically, I'm thinking about my 2 nephews and niece where I want to really spend time with them and have good quality conversations. They're all teenagers, so sometimes it's harder to get time with them, even though I am Auntie Amy, so I get a little extra time, not mom or dad. But I really want to have good conversations with those kids because they're really good kids and I always learn something from them. But then the second meeting I have tomorrow, or second engagement, if you will, is with a potential client. And so that type of conversation is very different. And how can I prepare myself mentally to be a part of those conversations? So I'm going to walk through these 4 areas that you can think about and work on in conversations to make them better quality. So area number 1 is presence. And while it's simple, or maybe simple, how present are you in the conversation? And by present, I don't mean you're physically there and ready to have a conversation. It's, are you with that person? Are you a part of that conversation? Are you focused on what that conversation is? Either on the question that's asked, or a challenge you're trying to solve together, or sharing your story. Are you there? Now, number 2 is intention. As part of being present, are you there with intention? And so with my nephews and my niece, my intention is to let them know that I'm really interested in what they're doing, that I love them, and that I'm there to support them. So if they ever have challenges, they can always come to me, but being there and present in the conversation and being intentional that I really value them and I love them and that they matter, that's helping to build a relationship. But the conversation can be a base for that. And number 3, expansion and enrichment. Now that's a little different twist on a conversation. So it's not always going to be a part of the conversation to expand thinking or enrich someone's thoughts or learn where they're coming from. But, people do like to talk, and they like to feel as if they're helping someone or that they're adding something to it. So I'm actually selfishly, I have another purpose with my family tomorrow, is that I'm hosting a seminar with young women in high school in a couple weeks, and I want to start off with some really fun, upbeat music. Now, my idea of fun, upbeat music is probably a little different from those of high school girls. So I've asked my babysitter a bit, but I want to get from them, I want to be enriched, and I want to expand my thinking on the types of music by asking, okay, here's this playlist, dudes. Is this even in the realm of what's going to be there? Or is this some old lady being crazy on a stage? But the other fun part of this is I know by them sharing that information, they're going to feel really good by helping me as well, right? So there's that expansion and enrichment part of the conversation. And number 4 is engagement. And the level of engagement that you have with a person or a group in a conversation, I think is really reliant on how present you are in that conversation, how intentional you are in the conversation, the expansion and enrichment, which lead to a really great, positively engaged conversation. So again, I challenge all of you, take one day and rate yourself on how present you are, how intentional. Have you expanded or enriched either yourself or someone else? And were you really engaged? So I would love to hear challenges you're having around this, or thoughts you have around this, or areas of frustration that you may have with this, or areas that you found, you know what, this has really helped, and this is how it helped. So I'd love to hear from you on that. And as always, don't forget to like and share this video, and don't forget to start every day with a smile.